Hey everybody!
That was new. I like a little. That was good. I like that.
Welcome to episode 71 of Tactical Crouch. People say, John, you'd be a lot better analyst if you spent half the time making stupid in Final Cut and just like watch some Overwatch VODs. And then I was like, yeah, you're right. And then I made that. So
that was amazing.
Anyways, hi guys.
I couldn't hold it yesterday when he showed me. It was just, the little Mona Lisa thing is just breaking me.
The Yiska
There's a
Mona
lot
Lisa.
of nuance that you gotta watch it through a couple of times to catch it all. It's well worth it.
If you're watching the audio, go back and watch the first little bit of the video. It's worth it, I think.
Yeah,
But
definitely is.
Hey, KickedTripod here. Yiska, Volamel, of course. Good to see you guys. But back on the show, the Panda Pro assistant coach / analyst for the Toronto Defiant, none other than the peg-legged Barroi coming on in. He's got his panda. Is that just like a neck pillow?
Yes, that's a neck pillow.
It's not a toilet seat warmer.
I wouldn't sit on a panda.
Just
Fair
imagine
enough.
sitting on the toilet seat. What would be on his eyes? If that,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's
Is
the
that
most
tactical
well.
crouching, by the way?
I'm not saying it's the most well thought out product. I just wouldn't put it past some people to try to make it anyway.
Yep.
It's just a thing. Anyways, hey chat, good to see you guys. We've got a packed show. We're gonna get right into it. Chat with Barroi. You're in crunch time now, Barroi. You've got what?
Yeah.
How many weeks? 2 weeks now before you guys probably travel? A little more?
Yes, 2 weeks. I hope I get my fucking cast off before then. If not, I have to like hire someone so they can like paint a panda on my cast. That's like mandatory.
It would be mandatory, right? Is it a like what color is the cast?
White.
It's white. Oh, so it's already
perfect.
halfway there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy at that point. This onesie here has some really weird panda eyes on the.
Dude, I have the very same one.
Yeah, it was really cheap on Amazon. I'm like, you know what? I'm doing it.
Nice.
So
Nice.
Do you want to have a moment for your shared like early midlife crisis, or like, what's going on here? Is he just on Amazon one night hating life buying panda costumes?
Don't hate on his footy pajamas, okay? If he likes panda footy pajamas, don't kink shame him.
I think anyone who doesn't have them has like a midlife crisis.
it's actually one of Katie's kinks. Actually,
No, well then there you go.
She
No
really
shame
likes-
here.
She really likes the panda.
We only
costume.
judge Overwatch play. We don't judge.
What's your
what you
excuse,
guys
bro?
like.
Oh man, it's his kink. That's fine for himself. That's all right.
Exactly.
That's fine.
We're
Every-
above the bed and everything. Yeah.
Love those pandas, she says in chat.
like one day, I'm living with Lil Bo, right? One day when I don't know what it was, we had like some time because scrims were starting late, and he was at the practice facility. So I had all my panda posters, and I hung them up all over the apartment. So everything has like panda posters now. And he came home and he was like, "Nice," because this guy is actually the biggest panda lover, like after me.
Oh really?
Yeah. So this is like the panda apartment.
That's great. That's what you call an ideal living situation.
He actually, like his, he gave me, when we were flying to Toronto, he gave me from his girlfriend, he got like for me, like a panda, what do you call it, that you put on your eyes so you
Like
can
a
sleep?
face mask?
A sleep mask or face mask? Yeah, yeah.
mask.
It's insane.
I love it. All right. No more pandas for right now. We gotta pace the pandas. You know, we gotta pace it.
Yes.
We've got a
Pace it
few
out.
things really quick before we get started. Thanks everyone for being here. We set up something new over the week. If you go to bit.ly/TCP shop, got a nice little store there. Some people asked, like, hey, could you put together some designs? I'd love to support the show. And this way, we've got a nice Yiska. You can get shirts, mouse pads, coffee mugs, all that kind of good stuff. We've also got a nice minimalist tripod Yiska and Volamel shirt, and then, of course, a TCP logo. So we're not going to spend too much time on that. Want to let you know it's there. Great way to support the show as well.
I will get a Yiska product because it's insanely nice.
The Yiska stuff turned out really great. So, yeah. Cool. That's it. Yiska, I don't think Yiska was ready for it when I showed him the first time, but I have my Yiska. There's like something called a workout tee. So I got a Yiska workout tee coming. Should arrive, I think, on Wednesday. So.
Oh my god.
I'm starting workout next week. Do you think when mine arrives, I should just walk into a gym with my face with cat hair?
Right there. Yes, I think you should. I definitely think you should. All right. Back to business. And that business is what Yiska has to say. I don't know. You look like you're about to say something.
No. I just wanted to warn Barroi that he was about to get grilled, of course. Panda steaks.
Yeah, we've got Barroi here. Barroi has been on before. He came on during the middle of last season, chatted with us a little bit about the Toronto Defiant. I think it was right after stage 1. And brought him back. You're a little over 2 weeks away until the start of the season. And getting ready to travel. How many miles is it?
We have, I looked at Yiska's article, like the spreadsheet earlier, and we have like, what is it, 90,000? No, what was it,
Over
90,000
kilometers.
Yeah, over 90,000. I think it was
57.
about 100 or something, 100,000 kilometers. So it's like.
Yeah, we talked about that you will likely travel 100,000 kilometers. So,
Oh, yeah. So it was 90, yeah, exactly. It was 91,000 kilometers, which is like 2 and some extra around the equator. So if you went like around the equator twice, then you would be at like 80,000 kilometers. And we've got 90. That's insane.
It's insane.
Is that on the higher end? That's right. That's
Yeah, apparently.
On the that's what I thought. Okay, so that's all about to happen. We're going into 2020 season 3, but before we talk about that, I actually want to rewind a little bit and talk about your 2019 season, because you said some strong words on the last show about how you expected the Defiant to finish, and all in all, you ended up finishing at 17th, tied with the Washington Justice with a record of 8-20. I don't want to say what do you think went wrong with that first season for the Defiant, but I do want to know a little bit more about why do you think that the team ended up landing at 17th place? We're not holding any punches here.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I think it was, now that I look back at it, there were good reasons for me being very convinced because I think when I went on this show, we were like the 4th best team in the world at the time or something, which is insane to think about, that we like finished 17th, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest problem last season was probably the atmosphere. It's weird to say, but like the team atmosphere was probably the biggest problem. It led to us losing Stella after stage 1, and then we tried to better the atmosphere by letting Envy be traded to Shanghai. But at that time, at that time, then we all also tried to go hybrid with like Westerns and Koreans, which didn't turn out to be a good choice at the time because the team wasn't built for it at the very start of the season. If it was, then we might have had better results. But so just the team atmosphere being not the greatest from the start, to then us leading to us making bad decisions during the mid-season is probably why we ended so low, considering that we, in my opinion, still were the fourth best team in stage 1.
So, I mean, are you like, what does that do for you now going into the second season? So you kind of had, because you're right, you guys, was it 5-2 in stage 1 or 4? I think it was 5-2, right?
5-2, yeah.
Yeah, and the kind of, it was you and the Atlanta Reign, I think, were
Atlanta,
both.
yeah, we were tied, and I'm saying we were fourth place because from the scrim results, I think it was NYXL, Vancouver, and San Francisco that were better than us, but we were consistently beating everyone else. And in playoffs, we had the bad luck to get San Francisco in quarterfinals for the stage playoffs. So we ended up losing in the quarterfinals and the playoffs, but just from scrims and from the regular season, I think we were the fourth best team. So it's unfortunate.
So, like, overall, or do you think, like, looking at that placement, like, do you, like, how do you leave that? Like, yeah, we did the best we could with what we have, or do you think you'd go back and change anything?
Oh, there is a lot to change. Yeah. So I think from the very start of the season, the team wasn't built for atmosphere. The team wasn't built for like high morale or high long-term sustainability, I'd like to say. It was built to perform well, and it did. But unfortunately, it all exploded sooner than expected, so to say. And then, like, we had to make changes all of a sudden. And those sudden changes were where we probably made bad decisions throughout the season, and that's why it all like became like a death spiral.
So I think the natural follow-up from that is like, what have you guys done this season to kind of compensate for the mistakes or the improper setup throughout the season? So what about 2020 has changed?
A lot has changed. So like the biggest thing is that this team was built specifically in mind with high team morale and a great atmosphere. Like everyone on the team was chosen for their personality and how the personalities would interact with each other. Skill was obviously a part of it, like in-game skill, because otherwise we would have not had Overwatch League players, right? But I think the biggest point in establishing the roster this season was building it for high team morale, and for now it's been working insanely well. Like our atmosphere in the team has been insanely good. Like everyone is willing to learn, willing to improve. Like there's no squabbles or anything, no one's fighting. Everyone's like maybe they are not like best friends and super good buddies, but everyone's like working well with each other, you know. I don't like saying that we are family, because I feel like that's disingenuous to say for a lot of teams, but just the work atmosphere has been insanely good. There's people who are pushing for the competitiveness. That's why everyone's keeping on track. And even at the start, when we were in Korea and we were not doing well because we're a new team, like us losing scrims against Korean contenders teams didn't do much to our morale and the overall atmosphere in the team.
Interesting. So
yeah, this season has been, the roster building has been done with exactly team morale and atmosphere and personality.
Whereas last season it wasn't necessarily something high on your list. It was more of
last season it was more so. I personally didn't know much, didn't know how big of an effect it is at the start of last season anyway, because I was new to coaching.
Sure.
But last season was mainly done with in-game skill in mind, and how in-game character, like in-game personality, affects each other. Like, this guy is very aggressive, so we need like a very passive main tank or something like that. This year it's more out-of-game personality that has been the deciding factors. Also keeping in mind the in-game components of it, but out-of-game factors have been, I think, the bigger focus this season.
Interesting.
Is that mostly magnified based on what you learned last year, or also the fact that you're going to be traveling and living in a lot different arrangements than you had from this last season?
Both. I want to say both, because I personally learned a lot last season. The biggest factor I learned, and I said that with Joe in an interview that we did, which was really interesting. It's an esports heaven. And I said that the main thing I learned last season is that coaching is all about psychology. Like, the biggest work you will do as a coach is like psychological work. You will have to motivate your players. You have to keep motivation up. You have to keep the atmosphere up. Like, there are very small things that you have to do all the time to keep everything working. And I think the whole company learned that this is a main factor. And that, combined with the new environment of us traveling every week, has been a deciding factor for the roster being built in the way it was built.
Interesting.
By the way, Barroi, just so, like, English is super papega in that regard. The P in psychology is silent. It's an abomination, because in German we say Psychologie, but you don't pronounce the P is silent, right? In psychology.
Okay.
Psychology. Did you just take time to tell Barroi how to say psychology on the show?
Yeah.
I mean, we're working our way to our German word of the day anyway, so might as well.
That's true. That's true. There is one for the show. So.
If any other coaches want to come on to the show, Yiska will tell you how to say words.
Just helping my German Breatharian here. Give me another German.
I'm just kidding.
It's actually a second German in the league right now. Except,
yes, there is, German. But don't say anything.
Well, except for the one that I know.
Wait. Oh.
Oh, I'm so confused now.
Yeah, we talked about it. No. Hey, you're thinking of the right person. Is this juice?
Technically, so what you're saying is there's
Barroi just doesn't know anything what's going on in the Overwatch.
No, that's a staple of Barroi. Like, he'll just pop in and just be like, "Wait, that happened? Whoa! Like, where was I?"
So there's a German player coming to Overwatch League.
I mean, there was already last season, right, with Kodak.
Yeah, the thing is, last season there was Kodak, and there was.
I mean, in terms of coaches. Or,
yeah, anyone.
I mean, there was Promise.
This guy.
What?
Yeah. This guy. So there were at least two other Germans.
What is this show? I can't.
Hey, sometimes I have to update my knowledge.
Like, why am I working harder to keep Barroi's job than he is? Okay.
I just wanted to know, because sometimes I don't know what.
No, you don't know what's happening. You're
like sometimes people tell. Sometimes people tell me Meko is in a different team, and I'm like, wait, he's not on NYXL anymore. Like,
yeah.
That's fair.
Dream keeps telling him, he's like, no, he's on Houston now, bro. He's like, no, I'm pretty sure he's still on NYXL, dog. Like, haven't you seen them? Like,
yeah.
They were in scrims, I swear. I saw.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when I was surprised when he was suddenly put in. I'm like, whoa.
I was surprised too. I thought it was one of the. I'm like, I must be confusing one of the other 11 tanks that start with M from Korea, and just can't. And it's like, no, it was Meko. It was
Isn't Miro coming back or something? Wasn't there something about Miro? Now that we talk about this.
Yeah, no,
Update
he's a free agent. He said he's breaking out of retirement and is looking for a team. So yeah, he's I guess he's on the market. We haven't heard much from him since his announcement on stream, but yep, he's seemingly back.
I like it when our guests come on the show and ask us questions.
That's a nice change of pace. I'll take it.
I mean, I'll listen to Joe talk about that all day long. I really will. But
Barroi's personality is just like guy frozen in a Cairo. What's a Cairo freeze chamber for 10 years, comes out, doesn't know what anything is, including technology and any.
Seriously. So like I went to Germany for Christmas, right? And they were telling me all about like what happened in the world. I'm like, what? Like, because I don't follow news or anything. I'm living in my small like bubble where I go to work every day and that's it. And then they tell me like something about Donald Trump and whatever happened to like in Africa, and there's like tons of fires in the Amazon and shit. I'm like, whoa, I didn't hear of that.
Yeah, as long as no pandas are hurt.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only thing that matters here.
That news doesn't permeate the Barroi bubble.
So to kind of underail us for a moment, you talked about building the roster, and one thing that kind of has crept up and has been a roller coaster for me on weighing some of these rosters is roster depth. You guys in general don't have I think you're running a little bit leaner than most. Is there plans for more additions? How are you guys, I think the one big area that people are kind of criticizing you on is especially main tank. You signed Beast. I think we'll get into him as a specific topic a little bit later in the show, but is there room for you guys bulking up, especially at a point in the season where you guys don't have a ton of travel, you're going to stay in North America? Is there room for that?
So I said that the whole idea of this team is atmosphere, and a part of it is having a small core of players that we are willing to play with. And right now we have a core that we have players that we are really happy with. They're working really well with each other. Bringing in an additional element would potentially disturb that.
True.
It's like putting a third or fourth host on your show. Who knows what's going to happen, right? Like put ZP on your show and like, who knows?
Who knows? We start talking about Balotaja. Who knows? Nobody knows.
Yes.
So we in a similar mindset, we have like this core of players, and we are really happy with them. And we will try to run with them. I mean, if there's like something going seriously wrong or something, someone going like seriously ill in the main tank or flex tank position where we don't have any subs right now, then it's possible that we will sign someone. Someone is like getting ill because they go to China or something. It's possible with all the travel. Sure. But it's not in our current plans. No, actually not.
Okay. But like contingency wise, you're at least thinking about like, okay, if this happens, we do XYZ, stuff like that.
There's plans in place in case of emergencies, for sure. But it's been a part of the roster building that we want to have a core of players that can work with each other, where there is some level of competitiveness, but it's not like that high amount of pressure every day that on the match day they would feel like totally burnt out already, because they have to perform every day to show up and to show that they are first place. For example, there's a bunch of teams that do like the A roster and B roster thing again. They have 2 6-mans, and whichever 6-man is better will play at any given match day, and that's something that we don't like to do, just because mainly it means that every single day is like a high pressure environment, and we feel like we don't want that, because we want the high pressure points to be on the match day. So we want like a fairly equal scrim day, and then we want high pressure here for our match day where they can perform the best. And then we go back to like relaxing and then building up our pressure again. And if you have 12-man roster, then it's like high pressure, high pressure, high pressure, high pressure, high pressure, and then it's like on the match day here at the end, you're like, I can't play anymore. Like I've been playing like 4 or 6 hours a day for like the past 5 weeks. What am I gonna do?
So you kind of hint at it there. Like, is this emulated? Is this kind of team atmosphere? Not first, but like you know, Defiant is weighing team atmosphere very high. Is that kind of reflected in your practice time? Are you guys practicing a little bit less than you did last season? Is that something that is being affected? Are you lowering the numbers there?
It's similar to last season, but I think it's lower than what some teams do. I know a lot of teams do 3 blocks every day.
Okay.
Normally we do 2 blocks a day, and every team does like Monday to Saturday, so 6 days a week. And we do 3 blocks of scrims occasionally, but not every day. So while it's similar to last season, I think it's lower than the highest scrim hours that Overwatch League has, because there's definitely some teams that scrim for like 6 hours a day. Which is a lot. It's just burning out your players and your coaches. Trust me.
Yeah,
makes sense.
No, there are definitely teams that have either are regularly running 3 blocks, or alternate depending on the day, or some are just trying it out if it is useful, because certainly the last block is. Depending like on how fresh you feel and what your schedule is probably not going to be super like effective, but I guess it depends on the player type. And I've long thought that there are different players in the way they approach practice. There are people that can just sit down and like think to themselves about certain angles they want to take and when they want to take them or whatever. But there are definitely people that just like grind for 12 hours and their skill depends on them insanely grinding. And I think those people will likely suffer from the way they got where they are. And the people that can be more independent of heavy mechanical practice, as well as just like being away from a PC, I think they will receive an inherent boost to their performance. Of course, depending also on the team, because as we know, travel is not created equal.
Definitely. Barroi, to Yiska's point there, is there a difference in how you guys are coaching or setting up practice from a fully Korean team to a Korean mixed team to now like a mostly Western, mixed roster? Are you noticing a difference? Is there a difference in how you guys are coaching this squad?
There's definitely a difference between mixed roster, like complete hybrid roster, and just one language, because mixed roster, you have to put a lot of emphasis on making sure that everyone understands each other.
Sure. Of course.
If their English isn't the best, or their Korean isn't the best, depending on which language you choose in the mixed roster. But I think other than that, it mainly depends on the coaching philosophy, and that is basically mainly set up by the head coach. And since our head coach changed, it's different for sure. But I think from a general perspective, between Korean and English coaching, if there wasn't like a head coach factor, I think it is probably fairly similar.
Interesting.
So let's talk about Féfé for a second. So your new head coach is Féfé, comes from the Paris Eternal last year. I mean, what's it like working with him as your head coach? Is he Does he drive the team any differently than the staff in 2019, or what can you tell us about him? Yeah, how so? Tell us about it, because Féfé is kind of he's almost kind of like an urban legend, I think, at some levels. When he was first announced to be head coach of the Paris Eternal, it was a huge pro in that column. Obviously, I don't think the Paris Eternal did as well as most had expected or hoped, but he was one of those figures that was in the plus column, and people were very, very passionate, especially players and people who actually worked with him. They were very high on Féfé. They were had a lot of respect for him and his coaching. Is that a lie? No, I'm just kidding. But is what's it been like bringing Féfé in here?
So the thing is, I said it earlier, the biggest factor about coaching, in my opinion, is psychology. And Féfé is really good at motivating people. He really knows how to get to people in a way. He really knows when to speak up and when not to. He knows how to set up practice so we get to to the match day in a way that our performance is at the peak, and not it's not a regular day for us. So he sets up practice. It's super abstract to talk about it, I know, but the way he does it is he makes it so that our performance is supposed to peak on match day. And he's just really good at motivating people, at bringing people together. The way he coaches, he might not be the biggest brain, but that's not your head coach. That's your strategic coach or your analyst, right, in the team. So he's maybe not the biggest brain in the team, but he knows his stuff. And most importantly, he knows how to create a good environment, a good practice environment, and he knows how to keep the atmosphere high. Even if motivation is dropping slightly, then it's his time to bring it up again, and he does it really well. So I don't know, a lot of people don't know that maybe, but I didn't know it before, but Féfé has been coaching in basketball for a long time, and he's been playing basketball on a national level for a long time, and he has a master's degree in something sports psychology or coaching or something. So he has actually a lot of experience when it comes to team environments and coaching environments. So compared to last season, it's been a hell of a difference. I can say that. The first day we had in the career bootcamp, he defined the structure perfectly. I don't know if it's perfectly, but he defined the structure, and we stuck to it, which is something that I think we didn't necessarily do last season, where it was a bit more flexible. But this time we have a very set structure in terms of coaching and where the players are and where the team is and what the GM is doing and everything like that. This is something that's completely out of the game, but the structure there is set. And in the same way, we set in-game structure of communication and everything up. So we have a highly structured environment, which is, I think, very advantageous. Something that you really want to have, because once you have structure, and once people start sticking to it, it's something you don't have to worry about anymore. And if you don't have that, in terms of coaching and stuff, then players might think what is this guy doing? Is this guy even improving? Do they criticize our flex tank because he did a mistake last scrim or something? And all those questions that are in the back of your head as a player maybe, or even as a coach, that are completely taken care of by the way how we structure things. And that's something that is completely thanks to Féfé, really.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, every educator will tell you the same thing, right? Structure, Like for instance, when I like I do tutoring, and when like a kid comes to me and he already has like his notebook is already like kind of ripped and it's like bent and there's a lot of crossing out done, and then they don't write down their homework and they don't know what the name is for the thing that they're doing. It's like all confusion. You gotta unclutter that first, like structure first, and then you can buffer the knowledge. Without that structure, it just has nothing to stick to. It's just like all a blob of knowledge that's like just like forced into you, but you cannot really put it into the required like boxes. And
Yes.
I think I think Féfé comes from a professional sports background, right? So of course incorporating that kind of stuff is highly important.
Yeah, I know it's really abstract to talk about that, but it's something that's so incredibly important. It's something that I noticed was lacking last season, and I think the structure itself is something that people might figure out how to improve. But he combines like being good at structuring things with being that highly motivating coach that grabs you when you need to be grabbed. Like something that I can say for this team is that we start scrims when we are supposed to start scrims, because you schedule scrims for like, let's say 1 to 3 p.m. and we are there at 1 p.m. Everyone's in the lobby and we are waiting for the other team to get their asses on the PCs. So like normally it's like last season it wasn't that way. Last season we weren't maybe on time all the time, but it's like those little details, you know. We are there when we are supposed to be there. And it's not something we have to discipline anyone about. Like there has never really been like any disciplining. We have like rules in place, and if someone doesn't stick to a rule, then there's maybe like a small punishment. But it doesn't even come to that. That's the thing. It's like most of the time when we have scrims, we are there. And we are waiting for the other team to get ready. There was one time when we played Houston in scrims. It was funny because at some point I think it was Walkers who, at the end of the scrim, he said something in all chat, and he was like, this scrim has been POG, and he was like, we start on time, there's no breaks, we have like a 5-minute break, and it is a 5-minute break, not a fucking 15-minute break, and then we have seven maps to play. It's like insane. So that's something that not a lot of teams have, I think. From what I see, at least.
The opposite of my raid team too. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with that structure in mind, and looking back at the 2019 Defiant, and you talk about how that squad, like at the start, was, you know, in your mind top 4. Do you think that the 2020 roster, with the team structure, with the players that you have right now, could reach those peaks, or at least somewhere near it?
So something like reaching a top 4 performance is really hard in Overwatch, and I think we were lucky that we were able to do it in stage 1 last season. I expected us to perform well because I was part of the roster building, and I was highly convinced of a lot of those players, but I didn't necessarily take in mind all the psychological and personality effects. That's why it failed, and that's why it will always fail. So to do something like that, having a team that is at the top is incredibly hard, and I think while we have a lot of potential, there is maybe a chance to get to that point, especially looking at our schedule. But it's not something where I would say, yeah, we are definitely top 4.
Sure, of course.
You learned your lesson. I get it. No, just kidding.
I mean, let's be honest. Your schedule in season 1 season 2 stage 1 helped a bunch in being
for sure. But I think we were actually a top 4 team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think it's a schedule.
as you said, based on scrim results and everything.
But, yeah. But whatever. I think it's possible, because looking at our schedule now, we have like most of the harder teams at the second half of of the year. So, and there's always this effect of the spiral. Either it's a spiral upwards or it's a spiral downwards. And so it's possible with those players that we can reach like a really high, but it's not a given.
Sure.
For sure.
Makes sense.
Let's talk a bit about this roster, and we're just gonna go down. I'm gonna switch over here so the chat can see it. Big changes have been made, but there's one thing that I noticed right away, and that is you're gonna sell a lot of jerseys this year, which is gonna be great. A lot of fan favorite names there. Awesome. I think that's a great choice, but I'm a little skeptical, Barroi. And I want to hear your take on this a little bit. And I want to start with, I think, probably the position under the most scrutiny with you guys, right? Scrutiny right now with you guys is your main tank role in Beast, formerly Beast Halo, from Fusion University. There's, I mean, I would say, and you've kind of hinted at it, but to ask it directly, the goal of this roster is to just have a Western roster, correct? Like that was a thing.
Sure. Yes.
Sure. So the main tank role for Western players isn't a huge pool, anyways. But regardless, Beast here comes in, and it's really difficult to properly. You know what? Let's just tell me why Beast. Why one main tank, a 19-year-old from Contenders, no backups, nobody else there to fill that role? Tell me.
So there's a lot of upsides actually with these. This kid has an insane competitive drive. First of all, like it's something that you won't really see because it's not in-game related, but if he's in the practice room, he makes everyone practice harder. Like he's the one setting up like fun lobbies where they play 1v1s and stuff, and he's like bantering with them, and he's like, "Hey, Kuri, if I fucking beat you on Ana again and shit." So he's like really good at, or he has like a really good competitive drive. He wants to improve. Like sometimes I remember in the Korea bootcamp there was like one thing where I had like a one-on-one session with him where we talked about like ultimates or something, and then we never really had to talk about it again because he just takes this and he learns. He takes any kind of feedback and he learns. You have to tell him something and he learns. It's like this kid, he really wants to learn. This guy is like so driven. I think it is really helpful, not just on a personal basis, but for the whole team. And actually something that we have done, we've been putting like more and more emphasis on his role. Like he's been having to do more and more stuff in the game. Like we have had him talk more about ultimates and how to plan things, and we've been giving him more responsibilities actually because we are really satisfied with how he performs and how he learns. So actually, from my perspective, Beast has been a really great pick.
Interesting.
It might seem weird from the outside because again, there's no backups and stuff. But yeah, like we've been giving him the responsibilities, and he's been responding really great, really well. There's not much to complain about him at all. You tell him what he's been doing wrong, and he's like, yeah, and that's it. Like, and he takes it, and then he gets better at it. It's really nice to see.
Yeah, that's kind of reassuring to hear, because that's again like a big question mark for this team in general. Is, we haven't seen him play in a good year or so because of what was going on with Fusion University, and he wasn't starting, and Chongsik, who Yiska absolutely adores, was starting. So there was definitely questions there, and it's reassuring and definitely appreciated the glowing review.
Yeah, like
it's
again.
It's good.
When the roster was built, like we looked at all those players, right? Everyone was looked at, and people were chosen for reasons. And one of the reasons was like that this person, Beast, is like really competitive, and it boosts like everyone's morale and everyone's competitiveness again in the practice facility. Like they sometimes just have like doomfist 1v1s, and it doesn't seem like a big thing, but it's something that didn't happen last season, for example. Like they wouldn't perform, they wouldn't play like 1v1s in the team, and maybe it's just 4 of the players or something, and then one of them wins, and it's like, yeah, I'm the best. What you gonna do, right?
Right.
It's just those tiny things that add on to what I said earlier about it being more about psychology than about anything else really in sports.
So you're not worried about the depth at all at main tank either? He can service all those main tank positions well enough, you think?
Yeah, I think he can. Yeah, we are not concerned at all right now. We obviously don't know how he will be performing on a stage. We don't necessarily. I mean, it's a question mark with every rookie player. Will he go completely mad under pressure, right? When we put him on the stage in front of like thousands of people, will he completely like start sweating and stuff? But we don't know that.
Yeah, you can't measure that.
But from what we see, from how he is as a person, it seems like that will make him perform even better, actually.
And somebody kind of is mentioning this in chat that I kind of want to, pick up and have you explain. Even if you did sign a substitute main tank and he did get, this hypothetical sub got a little bit more playtime, you don't think that Beast would be a player from everything that you're saying? You don't think Beast would be a player who kind of shuts down by not getting playtime? Like he's willing to fight for that starting spot, and if anything, that might motivate him even more. That's the type of player we're talking about. Yes,
definitely. Like, I think he's like your traditional. He's like the traditional sports player that you read interviews of, where he's like, because there's always those interviews with like quarterbacks and something, and they're like, yeah, I train like 50 hours a day and shit, and I have all my teammates perform, and he's like this kind of guy. He's extremely competitive. He just wants to win. He wants to be the best, and he wants to improve. It's
interesting.
Yeah,
there's
almost nothing bad to say about it.
I like what I'm hearing. Granted, this is very biased, but I'm liking it. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it depends, or it matters what happens on the server,
of course.
And I will also say, to a degree, as I talked about earlier, like it's going to be a lottery for a lot of players, even established like elite tier talent, how they handle the next season. Like it wouldn't at all surprise me if someone like Sinatra or Jonak or maybe even someone like Rascal or one of these established elite tier players just drops off a cliff because they cannot handle the new environment.
I think it's
that's just like Barroi. You also remember League of Legends in that regard, like Moscow 5 type of deals. Of course, they had an asymmetric. So just to briefly explain, there was this world-beating Russian team. And it was back when when League of Legends was still a tournament circuit. So they would go to the IEMs and then over to China, and then I think was MLG still around? Might have been, yeah. And they were like a very good team. They went to Worlds and like lost to the eventual winners, very close. I think was it the semifinals or something? And then like the next season, the LCS happens, or like the league start up, and they just completely drop it. Admittedly, they had to like have flights from Russia and back, while other teams were more stationary. But still, it completely wrecked this team. They went from elite to legitimately bad within a year. And I think that is very possible to happen once again, because the discrepancy between a lot of travel and Washington Justice is a similar divide as it was between Moscow 5 and the other teams at the time. So, yeah, generally it is once again gambling a little bit, and then with the added, I guess, randomness of bringing a new player in that admittedly has already played offline events before, but also maybe not the size of the stage. I will say though, just in fairness, I think that like in terms of main tank talent, I think it is pretty thin in terms of the Overwatch League, but there are names that pop in my head, like Effect for Fiction or a Numlocked, that you guys could have picked up instead, just for that veteran status. And I think generally a lot of the league seems to agree with the approach of just bringing in newer, younger talent and building long-term or trying to structure their roster building strategy a lot of on young talent. And you guys are even one of the teams that counted more on veteran talent.
Yes,
we're actually,
that's good.
I think you only Beast is a contenders player, right? Everyone else comes from another Overwatch League team. Is that correct? Or at least has a year of Overwatch.
If you're not counting two ways, then yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Or like Roki and I guess Mangachu didn't, but
he didn't play a ton, but
yeah. So
yeah.
you already count a little bit more than everyone else on veteran status, right? So it's only fair that you have some rookie aspects within your roster to have that factor.
And again, like we chose this roster for a reason. Every player was chosen for a reason, and I think like last season I was very worried about pressure on stage because everyone was really silent. The team itself, the atmosphere was very different from what it was now. But with this team, I'm actually not worried at all. I talked about this earlier a little bit. We have like people like Reef who are like the most crazy guy you could meet on any given day. But in the game, he's like focus up guys. He brings you like to the point where you are willing to perform, and if you're feeling down, then he brings you up. And then we have Beast who drives competitiveness. We have like people like Nevix and Logix who don't seem like they would be affected by pressure at all, right? So I actually am not worried at all, or like there's very little worry that we have any types of problems on stage that people would perform badly under pressure. I remember the first game last season was like a big clusterfuck because like Yakpum was like super up and down, and Ivy was like completely up and down. They were like so nervous because it's their first game on stage, and we barely beat Houston like 3-2. And even later on in the league, it was like Ivy was like still super nervous. But with this team, with the atmosphere we have, it just looks good right now.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to come we got to put a little bit of a PSA reality check out there, because it's like, okay, we had last season, I heard before the season that Nevix was legitimately doing very well in scrims, and that there was a chance that he would be starting ahead of Choi. Now, of course, we learned over the season that Choi was a nuts off tank, extremely versatile, absolutely elite, MVP performances over the season. And then it was speculated that if you have the best in the game, your second player could be the second best, he would still not play. So with that rumor coming in, now this was like a cycle jerk on Reddit, that opinion was then picked up. Like everyone was like, oh yeah, Nevix is like amazing. And then at some point, of course, the counter cycle jerk comes in, and now everyone's like, oh yeah, dude, Nevix off tank like cures cancer. I'm so funny in the comments. And I think now we're arriving where it was first overrating. Now we're like heavily underrating, I think we can come to the middle, right? Like, do you have any opinions on Nevix in terms of like just how he compares to other off tanks in the league and generally like as a person in your team?
Well, I wouldn't say he's the best player in the world. That's probably overrating. I haven't been reading a lot of Reddit, to be fair, recently, so I can't really comment on whatever has been said. I'm always shutting myself like away from all those kind of social media things. But Nevix has been a good asset to the team. Like, he's probably the one who goes to the coaches by himself the most, and he's like, what could I do better here? Or should I play this character instead of this? Should I play should I save my defense matrix on Diva for this situation and stuff? Or he would go to another player and be like, what do you think? How do we combine our abilities here and in this situation and stuff? So I think he's probably thinking about the game the most, because he really wants to prove himself, I think. And he's someone who, if you tell him he made a mistake, he would never take it personally. Like, it's something that is so critically important. If you tell him you make a mistake, he would not take it personally at all. And if he tells another player that they made a mistake, then he would say it in a way that they wouldn't take it personally, because they know who Nevix is, and he would never flame anyone. He's like someone, you wouldn't expect this guy to ever flame anyone or be outraged or be mad or anything.
Well, I'll have you know, in season 1, when Overwatch came out, he was on Roadhog and I was on Zenyatta playing with a friend on Genji at like 75 SR, and he did in fact flame me. And I deserved it for fingering trans.
Well, I guess I can see that, but yeah, I've never actually I've never actually seen him flame anyone on the team. He plays a lot of ranked. He's grinding a lot, actually. Maybe the most in the team after Woki. Woki grinds like mad. But yeah, he has something that you want of every player, right? He's self-critical. You can criticize him, and he won't ever take it personally, and maybe that's because of how well we structured things as well. Because I think no player takes criticism personally, and that's something that is very much because of how you structure things in a coach-to-player relationship and in a team environment. But yeah, he as a person has something that you want like every competitive person to have. And I think we did, like, when we did our bootcamp, we asked like every player what they expect, and what they expect from the coaching staff, and what they expect from the season maybe, and from the team. And I think if I remember correctly, he said that he really wants to make playoffs. So he really is someone who also wants to perform well, and that is probably part of why he is so self-criticizing a lot. He's self-criticizing himself a lot. Yeah.
I think everybody knows Nevix, or at least people who've been around for a while know Nevix to be very flexible. Is that something you guys might be utilizing this season at all, or is he, strictly flex tank? Or
well, the problem we have is that we are in the 2-2-2 log now. Surely everyone remembers him for being able to play like all the different roles and stuff. I remember him on Ana a lot, I think, early on, and we have the 2-2-2 log now, so he will be in the main tank, in the flex tank position, or in the tank position rather. Something that comes with tanks right now is that sometimes the flex tank would play Orisa because the main tank plays something else. So while normally the main tank plays the Yiska the most. So I guess it's good that he can flex a lot, but it's not to the same degree as it was in the past because of the 2 luck, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of which, they like in terms of coaching, you've made some interesting decisions. You like brought in the French mafia, if you want.
Yeah.
Lil Bo, of course, and then Féfé. Lil Bo, yeah, that's his first coaching gig. Of course, not technically, because like people help out in non-official positions, just do the work. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're never doing that in that regard, and that they don't have experience. It's just like they never had the title officially. We always hear that coaching staffs or at least let's say for the Valiant, we have like a separation of different fields. So this guy does personal coaching or like micro, this guy does macro strategy, this guy does like structure, like performance coaching almost. How have you separated your work in that regard? And what does, for instance, someone like Lil Bo bring to the table in that way?
So yeah, we do have our French Revolution here in the Canadian team. That's for sure. Which is actually in Canada, I don't know if you know that, but I didn't know that before I came here. Everything is in French as well as English. So like literally every product you can buy and every road sign is in French as well. It's just a small fun fact. But yeah, I said it earlier, we have a highly structured environment, and that means that everyone in the coaching staff has like their own kind of role. It's like, what do you call those graphs that are like overlapping?
Venn diagram?
Yeah, those Venn diagrams, exactly. It's like a Venn diagram, like everyone has their own field, and then there's something that maybe 2 people do, or maybe the whole coaching staff does together, like everyone does like individual feedback, for example. Féfé is mainly responsible for motivation, keeping motivation up. Lil Bo is doing a lot of strategy with me together sometimes. So we all have like our own fields, but we also have overlapping fields. And I think the way we are working together right now is actually really how do you say that?
Efficient?
Yeah, it's really efficient. That's a good word for it. Yeah, because I think we're a good team. The boot camp was a boot camp for the coaching staff as well, because it was the first time we worked together.
Sure.
But yeah, the way we work together now that we have all the structure and we know what we are supposed to do and where we can help and where we maybe want to not put our fingers in, works really well. So I think in that sense, the French Revolution helped a lot. I think it's, again, a lot thanks to Féfé, because he's setting up the structure. He's the head coach, right? So, yeah, the way we perform as a coaching staff team is, there's nothing to complain about as well, actually.
Do you still work a lot with stats at all?
Sure, yeah. It's part of it. It's not as much as I wish I was able to do, because stats are not as important as I wish they were, obviously. But I do work a lot with them. I always keep track of them, and they are helping me making decisions sometimes. They're helping the coaching staff make decisions sometimes. They help in confirming or disconfirming decisions and what we would like to do or what seems totally out of place. They help us keep our feet on the ground, because in the end, if you lose a map, it will show up as a loss. You can't say you won it because you did lose it. Stuff like that. So if at the end of the week, let's say you won like 30% of your maps, you can't say, "Oh, I think we won like every other map." It's like hard facts, so it helps sometimes. So that's definitely my field of expertise where no one else is doing anything because I'm the only one who does it. Yeah, I think that answers your question.
Talking about stats a little bit, and I think this is very interesting for a lot of viewers who like to see diversity in their meta.
Sure.
Without, of course, talking about your playbook, but more, and not necessarily about that of the opponents you've scrimmed against as well. Are there like general metas? Is there just like currently in scrims, is there like one meta comp, or do we have more diversity?
Right now, I think there are two big archetypes. There are two big archetypes that everyone is running. There's diversity in those as well, but the two big archetypes, you can just probably, or we call them poke and rush, where the rush comp is normally it's like Reaper, May, Orisa, Wine, Lucio, and like Moira or Baptiste or something. And poke comp is again May with Hanzo this time, and then maybe you have a different flex support. You still have Orisa because Orisa just seems really good right now, and you don't have a Lucio, but those are the big archetypes, so it doesn't seem like a big difference from the heroes that are in them, but the way you play those two comms is very different because of the win conditions they create. But with one you really want to be close up, and with the other one you want to kite and like put as much distance between you and the others as possible, have like great positions. So in that sense we kind of are out of goats because goats has been replaced by two things now. We still have like goats, which we call wash now, and we have a poke comp that is map dependent better than the goats comp, because just of how the map layout works, it's sometimes too hard, and with the Lucio speed boost being nerfed and stuff, it's too hard to get close. So the poke comps actually win out over the wash comps. There are teams trying like hybrid comps. I bet there's Chengdu doing all kinds of stuff, but I don't know because we don't scrim Asian teams. I think there's still a lot of experimenting actually.
Yes.
There's teams playing Junkrat and Widow, and I bet there's room for double sniper on like some maps.
Yes.
So it is diverse. It is more diverse, I think, than in the past. But you still have like two big archetypes of comps that people are sticking to right now.
Now, is that general across like a number of maps? Obviously, I'm sure like some archetypes are better on some maps, but are you seeing teams run an archetype that you kind of value as less than on maps that, you know, wouldn't suit it? Is it really two general schools of thought?
So it is very team dependent as well, because it depends on team philosophy and what you think your team is good at. For example, Shock has always been known for being really good at rushing, so I think they are sticking to it. I know that NYXL last season has been very good at playing slowly. Yeah, passive, if you will. And so you would think that they are probably more of like a team that would prefer pole comps. We have our own preferences, which I won't talk about. But
NYXL, that's how they're going to play. I get it.
Here's their playbook.
I'm just saying
all of those in the Scrimbucks Stock Exchange, of course, probably coming next week.
I obviously don't know if they are still doing it,
Sure.
but just from past experience, I think that NYXL has always been a team that's been playing slower.
Totally.
San Francisco always has been a team that's been playing faster, and if they stick to that, then you can kind of imagine what their comps would look like or their preferences would look like. And the same sense, you can look at every other team and be like, oh, maybe this player is an insane Widow, so maybe this team will play more Widowmaker. So I think it's not like every team has to do those two archetypes. It's more up to teams right now. It's more flexible and dependent on what players you actually have and what you think they're good at. Which is a nice thing to do because you add diversity and it's probably more exciting for viewers. And also more exciting to analyze because you have to analyze your opponents and like predict what's gonna happen and stuff. Which has always been like a fun thing about video games because there are different ways to play it. It's not like football where you always have 11 people and always a ball and you can change like what each person is supposed to do, and I'm talking about soccer, the actual football, by the way.
Whoa, sir.
But in Overwatch, you have different characters, so it is fun right now just looking at different teams and what they want to do.
So to speak on maybe something a little off the walls, a little outside of those two schools of thought, we are seeing not only in China, I'm going to preface that first. We are seeing it, we saw a little bit of it in, the Winter Classic
China.
with the Mayhems tournament. Do you think there's room for a dive-ish composition? Maybe not necessarily Winston and Diva, but maybe Wrecking Ball and other compositions. Are you seeing that? What are your thoughts on that?
So I think it's very map dependent. I think it's probably not something you want to do all the time because of just how strong those Russian Pokems are. And if you think about it, the Rush comp in particular seems like a natural counter to the dive comp because
totally.
Who wants to dive into a Reinhardt, Risa, Reaper, and May, who all will survive whatever you do, especially if there's a Moira as well, and then the only target is like Lucio. So, and I think that dive is not strong enough to dive into stuff like that, but I can see, again, there's like different experiments and different comps being played. It's not just those two archetypes, and I can see dive having a place. I can see dive being good at times, but I think it's very team dependent, and I think it's very map dependent as well. So only if like the team is supposed to be really good at dive, and then the map also allows dive, then I can see dive happening. But it's not something that I would see happening a lot. And I didn't see those tournaments. I don't know how much they played those compositions, but just because of how strong the Rush comp is naturally going to be against dive, I don't see it being like the third archetype, so to say.
That's fair. Yeah, but one of the big reasons why I bring that up is because Shanghai had just signed Fearless, and he's coming from a team that is like easily the best team going into contenders in China, and they're playing a good amount. Like I'd say 35% of the time they're playing like Winston Diva. They play it all Ike involved for whatever reason, but we're also not seeing a ton of the the rush comp as we'll call it. We're seeing a lot more poke.
I can see it if you have like a really good Sombra, because Sombra is always good.
Sure.
So maybe if you have like a really good Sombra and people are preferring to play poke, then Rush could be really good. But I don't know. I haven't been following China, but I guess, maybe it does really well at times.
So it's kind of like a not a natural counter, but you'd much more favor that into poke than Rush.
I think Rush is like a natural counter, because I don't think dive is a natural counter to poke. I wouldn't say that either, but. So it's not like a
triangle
thing.
It's not rock paper scissors.
Yeah.
But I guess I could see it. I didn't watch China, so
that's fair. That's fair.
Who does, by the way?
Yeah, not very many people. That's why we have Chengdu at 16th, right, guys?
Hey,
anybody in the chat? Anybody chat 16th?
I mean, listen. You don't have to watch
16,
China
baby.
to know that Chengdu at 16 is way too low.
See, maybe Chengdu is like diving all the time, and maybe it's really good because that's the fun about Chengdu and China. It's like they're doing all the crazy shit, and maybe they figured out that diving with like Doom, Sombra, and Diva Wrecking Ball or something is like the best thing you can do. I have no idea. But
find out.
we'll see.
Uh-huh.
It's not just because teams like to look at like San Francisco Shock and Vancouver Titans and be like, oh, they're playing this, we should play this too because they beat us. That's not something you can do, because right now at least, because it's more flexible and it's more up to your players. So if you're the Atlanta Reign, you might not want to do what San Francisco is doing all the time, because your players are different and your play style is different in turn. So I guess maybe Chengdu figures something out, right?
That's another, like, okay, we frequently ask or talk about the possibility of having two different metas in the different regions because of travel restrictions. But I also think that there's this distinct possibility that both, mostly Chengdu, but also to a lesser degree Shanghai, just taught teams that playing like perpendicular to the meta and not straight on can have massive advantages. And I hope that also, especially teams that cannot expect to reliably outperform even mid-tier teams on the established meta comp, take that lesson and just like reinvent a new way to play for themselves, looking at the roster that they had. I think almost every roster, like even Valiant, they did play meta comps for the most part. Admittedly, they adapted to Sombra also fairly quickly, but one of the important parts for their season was, let's look at what we have, what our system can support, and then we customize towards that. Now, they did it in roster building, right? They looked at their coaching staff, they looked at the players, what is the path of least resistance? Okay, we do that. For me, it almost felt like the path of least resistance was like mentally blocked for a lot of these lower tier teams last year, where it's like goats, right? Like it. Maybe you have like an 0.3% percent chance that you can like hilariously through some ways like find something out about goats, or like everyone improves massively and suddenly you're on par with like maybe not Shock, but the tier below that. Very unlikely. It's much more likely that you start beating like the mid-tier teams, but just playing some wacky stuff. And I wonder if Chengdu and Shanghai taught that to those teams this season, despite on top of the segregation of regions or divisions rather, contributing to meta diversity. Because theoretically, you would think, okay, there's a lot of volatility in the system. Let's all rally around this meta flag. I think because of how season 2 went, this now, just from a psychological point of view, became less likely.
I'm very much looking forward to how it all works out with us not being able to scrim Asia, for example. Because I remember at the start of last season, I don't know if I said it on the podcast or whatever, but I think I said something like, I expect teams like Houston, maybe I said, to run like a lot of quad DPS because it plays into their play style and their players would be good at it, which they didn't do, and then they performed badly, by the way. But that's still something I'm convinced of, that you should play to your strength, and I was glad that Chengdu did that last season, because I'm very much in that church, if you want to say that, of believing that you should not stick to what everyone is doing, but you should look for what you are supposed to do and where you can shine. And I think teams didn't do that last season. Maybe Houston was one of them.
I think teams in general have had a weird apathy towards that whole idea. I think Overwatch, weirdly enough, is very, and I think most esports have this, but I think it's more prominent here, is this weird like gentleman's handshake that like, oh, this is what is good. We'll only play this. We'll only practice against this, which again, like that's a whole nother train of thought that people are just removing from, is you don't want to practice because you've basically handshook with the entire league that we're only going to play goats, and that's what we want to practice against because that's majority of the field. Then you have Chengdu playing their own weird kind of recipe, which I like to use as a metaphor because your team is like a cookbook, right? Instead of trying to make a stew with the ingredients to make cake, just make a stew, right? Like just make what you have. Just use the ingredients to the best of their ability.
To be fair though, I think it's very human to do that, because if you look like something like basketball, it's like everyone played the same way, and then like 20 years ago they figured out, hey, wait, this is bad, maybe we should play for more 3-pointers, whatever it was. So I think it's very human if you're like in, let's say, in like your own bubble, that everyone conforms to doing the same thing. And that's what's so exciting about this season, because East Coast is not going to scrim a lot of China, a lot of Korea. So they are in their region, we are in our region. We don't know what's happening there, and they don't know what's happening here. That means we conform to our thing, and they conform maybe to something completely different. And maybe they are both equal, or maybe one of them is actually so much better than the other. So I hope there's a lot of diversity coming from the Asian teams. But we will only figure out once the season actually starts.
I mean, to your point there, like we could briefly look at some of the styles last year. Like a lot of teams did obviously have styles of play, but like the ones that really stuck out the most, like you talked about Shock being, very aggressive. We talk about Titans being very aggressive. We talk about NYXL being, a little bit more defensive. I like the idea of like the whole recipe metaphor is to kind of play into that, right? We want to have a style. You want to have your identity, and it needs to be strong. It doesn't need to be like a weird pick. It doesn't need to be a weird composition. It just needs to be the way you want to play the game. And if you're always chasing the best team, you're never going to be obviously the best. And it's not about just innovating, because that's much easier said than it'll just go ahead and innovate forehead. That's very hard for humans to do, but it's about figuring out what your team does best. And it might not be the most optimal thing, but that's going to yield you, I guess, the most results, the better results.
I remember last season we played like some weird Torbjorn stuff on Volskaya once we had Mangachu, and we were winning with it like all the time, because no one knew how to play against it. And that's one of the advantages, because if you play something weird, then no one will practice against it. And it's like, I think on match day, it's like, what are we going to do against this?
I think two big like examples of that kind of in action are Houston into Seoul in season 1. I think a lot of the Seoul players, a lot of the Korean players in general came out and were like, I don't know how, we've never even practiced against Junkrat. Like, what is this? Like, and then to talk about Chengdu, and like, they just didn't get practice. They were off in their own weird bubble. Like nobody wanted to practice with them. So they were, it's such a missed opportunity. I think teams are missing out on, but enough on my soapbox.
It's also like, if we think of it, I think even from a theoretical point of view, never was it less or more inopportune to do non-metas shit. Okay, let me like, oh my god, I put 7 negatives in one sentence. What is happening to this brain right now? So Goats made it so experimenting was very hard to do because Goats was so strong inherently. Sure. Usually metacoms aren't this ridiculous in comparison to the other archetypes that have been found.
Yeah.
So if that already worked last season to an extent for some teams, and yes, there will always be caveats to that. Like,
of course,
teams, there's like top teams saying, okay, like let us scrim against Shanghai like 2 weeks more, and we figure that out and still keep playing Goats. Fine, you didn't do it in the stage finals. That's what matters. So, in that regard, I think the metas that we have now, and of course we have 3 weeks to go, and I might be eating my words at the end of the 3 weeks, and we find something as strong. But as it presents itself to us right now, it is far less rigid inherently. There's not like a meta core comp that seems to be so ridiculous so penetratable or invulnerable as GOATS is, even though to a degree we still see these characteristics in that rush comp as well. But it seems much more exploitable, especially once the maps come into play. Now, currently we're in a luxury period where every team has a lot of time to figure stuff out. I'm not as concerned about the first couple of weeks, and then maybe once a meta patch hits, I wonder if then variety would slow down because people just don't have enough time to figure it out. But then again, we got to remind ourselves that there are teams that just randomly have 4 weeks off. Yep. And they can go into their laboratory and they can literally reinvent how metacomps will happen just through that. Usually, like in seasons past, contenders did that for us, where they had a rough idea. Now it could be like better coaching staffs coming in, more organized practice, with like just like a lot of time in those cases. I'm sure they will have a week off, or maybe if you have a 4-week break, probably 1 week off, and then they just like sit down and say, okay, this worked, this didn't. Maybe we get some academy team and we just grind it out until we have something that just beats the current meta archetype, and then we just come out rolling and it works somehow. And we have these, I think 4 teams have 4-week breaks, or 3, if I'm remembering correctly.
A couple big ones,
Eric may correct me in chat in a bit, and then there is a bunch of teams that have 3-week breaks.
Yeah.
A lot of them, actually. Just very few only have 2-week breaks. So individual teams will have time to rally at different parts in the season. And then, of course, we have meta changes and we have map changes. It just feels to me that unless the desire to feel security in the meta comp is too strong, if that's the case, okay. But everything else screams to me we will have a diverse season.
I would agree. I think we've been banging that drum for quite a while in the postseason. It's going to be more diverse. We're going to get more
season. We get 2.
Yep.
2 metas.
Nice.
Maybe in the middle this time. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Not in stage 4.
Right. No, mate. Yeah. We're going to 2-3-1 or whatever. The new combo that was happening. We're not going to talk about 2-3-1 right now. We might talk about it a little bit on Tuesday because that was a big conversation this last week. But
just fire one of your tanks.
Yeah, right.
Which tank would you fire? No, I'm just kidding. Joking. Don't answer that question. Yeah.
Are we going to move to our German word of the day?
Yes, let's do the German word of the day and then get out of here.
Sure. So, our German word of the day. It's actually a pretty good word, I think. It's called Weltenbummler, and I've gotten to know you, Barroi, as a bit of a Weltenbummler, and what it means is someone that loves exploring the planet in a sense, just like travels a lot, and also is just like an open person that interacts with the people there and enjoys their company. And it's like a literal translation would just like how would you translate Bummler? That's a good one. World like
that's a hard word.
Just like bummeln is like when someone takes his sweet time while walking somewhere, like, and then maybe purchasing.
So like this explanation. Nice.
Yeah, like shopping maybe. Like really relaxed shopping, but not really buying something. Yeah,
like if you know me, yeah. when it comes to like traveling or something, or even going on a trip, I'm like the last person to get ready. I'm like packing my stuff like 1 hour before the flight flies or something. In the airport, it's always like everyone's getting in line, waiting for the airplane, and there's like hundreds of people standing in line, and I'm sitting there reading my book until they say, "It's the last call. Dennis Mutz, please board the airplane." It's I actually do that. I normally wait until they say my name.
So you feel important.
Maybe.
If your seat's assigned, why not?
Yeah.
Besides the other
Like-
200 people pissed at you, why not?
Barroi is also the type of guy that just like one day decides, oh yeah, I'm going to learn Japanese, and then just flies to Japan while knowing that he will work in esports, and he might as well just like travel like 500 miles northwest and learn some Korean. Nope, he's going to Japan like directly before joining Overwatch League. Just like hardcore learns Japanese instead. Yeah.
Hey, that was a great time. Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, I was in Japan for like a while in 2018.
What's that again?
It was for 3 months only. Only for 3 months. But it was amazing, like getting to know people there and stuff. So I guess that's what that Volamel means, right? Just like enjoying to go to places, and I really enjoy being at places for like a long period of time, because I like learning the language and then getting to know people. That's why when I went to Canada, on the first day, what I did is I didn't go to like the Toronto Tower or anything. I broke my foot so I could go to the hospital to get to know the Canadian people, how they are in their everyday.
So it's your strategy all along.
Yes. But yeah, to get back to the world, what about it?
Are you looking for, like, your travel schedule is pretty ridiculous in that regard. Like, you have the most border or second most border crossings, of course, also because you're a Canadian team, just like Vancouver, and traveling to the US strictly means you're crossing a border, but you also like travel to Europe back and then to China as well. Are you actually looking forward to that? Like, just like being in these different countries yourself?
Yes, I do. And someone said, like, Asuka said that
world trotter.
The perfect translation is world trotter. Yeah, it's actually a great translation. So, but yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that. I'm mostly looking forward to China, where everyone is saying bad things about China, but we will stay in China for like 3 weeks, so that's like really nice. I would love to learn Chinese, actually. It's like one of my life goals, maybe.
Same.
Because it's just such a huge like amount of people that you can reach by speaking that language.
True.
And I always like speaking to people in their natural tongue. It's just so much more personal than being there with your phone and be like, hello, my name is Dennis, and then the phone is like, and you like don't know what it says. So that's why I already learned like one Chinese language, which is sentence, which is 我喜欢种猫, which means I love panda, which is the main thing.
Of course it
when
does.
I am in Guangzhou, I will land at the airport and I will be like 我喜欢种猫. And then I hope that someone just directs me to the zoo, like someone takes me by the hand or something, and then we go to the zoo and look at the pandas or something. But
Bro, when you say this and someone takes you by the hand, the chances of them bringing you to the zoo and not to a psych ward are very low, if we're being honest.
So,
come on.
actually, so when we went to Korea for the boot camp, I had like a little side trip where my flight was going to Chengdu, and I was on the fucking panda airplane. So my airplane, like, I have pictures of it on Twitter. Like, all the seats had like a panda cover, like on the seat and stuff, and all the cups were pandas, and the stewardesses and stewards, they were wearing panda aprons, and the plane actually had like a panda printed on it and stuff. And I had this panda with me. I had my panda plushie with me. I had like a panda keychain with me, and then there was this Chinese stewardess who was looking at me because I was the last one to get out of the airplane, because I'm that kind of person, right? So I was the last person to get out of the airplane. I was still reading my book when everyone already left, and I was like, okay, it's time to go. And so I took my panda plushie, put it back into my backpack, and she was looking at me, and I was looking at her, and I was just saying, "Wushi wow!" And then she started speaking Chinese to me, and actually I understood some of it. I understood some of it. I don't remember what she said, but I understood some of it because it was similar to Japanese a little bit. So I actually knew what she meant. I think she asked me if I'm going to Hangzhou or Chengdu, which is kind of easy to understand. And I said I'm going to Chengdu, obviously. And then I said I showed her the panda again. But that is the type of experience that I like about like traveling. Just talking to like people actually from the country and in their language. And so I'm actually looking forward to the China trip. And while most of the time when we go on match trips, we won't have too much time to explore the region or the city or whatever it is. I think there will be some time for it, and I will use the off time that I have. There won't be much, but I will use the time that I have to the best extent that I can to explore the countries and the cities that I'm visiting, especially China, because we are there for 3 weeks, and for at least 3 weeks, if I remember correctly. And that's going to be probably the most exciting time about Overwatch League, aside from the actual matches.
Love
Very nice, very nice.
Love it. But on that note, like all good things, it must come to an end. Barroi, dude, thanks for hanging out with us again. Good luck to you.
Sure.
In season 3. It was great just to, there's if people haven't picked up on it, there's definitely a familiarity on this podcast right now because we've all spent countless hours together in Discord before Overwatch League even was a thing yet. It was just, about half a dozen people who, were chatting every day. Winston's labbing every day and building new tools, writing articles, reviewing VODs. And so it's just really cool to, kind of see how far everybody's come and in their own journeys. We love having you on the show. And of course, anytime you can make time for us, I mean, you're honorary 4th host always. So
very much so.
Always welcome back on for sure. Before we do go though, let's get down to 2 nitty gritty things. I want you to put your money where your mouth is. And actually, no, I'm not gonna make you do that. I'm not gonna make you do that.
What?
He's gonna no.
I was gonna make you tell me where the Defiant are gonna finish. But let's do this. Yiska, I believe, put the Defiant. You put them at 12 or 13.
13 sounds
13.
right.
13. Over or under 13.
End season ranking. What do you
think?
End
of the season, Barroi.
End of the season. So that's something that is I experienced it last season. You have to put a lot of thought into predicting those end of season rankings because there's more to it than in-game skill. There's a lot more to it than in-game skill. It's a lot about the organization, the environment, what kind of team you're building, the personalities, are they clashing, are they not clashing, and in-game skill is a factor, of course. So 13.
I didn't know.
With what I'm currently seeing, and with what I've been seeing last season, not just from our team but from all the teams, the insights that I have, I'm actually pretty certain that it's definitely going to be better than 13. There's not much doubt in my hand. Things would have to go seriously wrong, I think, for us not to be able to end stronger than 13. And again, it's possible. You can't foresee everything. But with what I'm currently seeing and with the comparisons that I can make to other teams and to last season, I am fairly certain that we will have a much stronger, a stronger ending than 13. I think we will have a very strong first half, and then if we do that, I'm sure that our second half of the season can be even better, just because of how this team works. So I'm definitely convinced that we will make play-ins at least for sure.
Great.
Okay, lads. You just got convinced. Just put them top 5. I gotta make up for some spots for that Chengdu placement, please.
Jeez, yeah, please do. Yiska needs help. He makes dumb bets all the time on the show.
Didn't help that they actually got good players signed as well.
Just the dumbest bets, man. I don't know what you're thinking. You're so smart. And then you do that shit.
He literally asked me as he was making him. He's like, "Where do I put Chengdu? I don't know. Sell me on Chengdu." And I'm like, they're not going to be horrible. You saw what they did last season. I don't know, but
it's like okay. So I talked to you and I put him like 11.
We're not talking. We're not talking.
And then I just like kept shoving them down.
We're not.
Just kept falling, dude. What can I say? They just kept falling.
We're not gonna let.
Actually, I don't know much about Chengdu's coaching staff and if it changed a lot, because I don't know shit about anything.
Yeah,
as you noticed earlier at the episode.
Yes.
But if it's close to whatever was their last season, then I think they'll perform fairly well, especially with the segregation. Maybe they'll be one place below us if they're lucky.
There you go. I mean, we can talk about it a little bit more in the post show, but you know, that's a whole nother topic to kind of break down and dissolve into. So
sure,
we'll save that story for another time.
Yeah. Yes, we will. Before we go, Barroi, one more thing. This is not nearly as hard of a question to answer, but more a lot of Toronto Defiant fans out there. I think a lot of people overall very optimistic about the Defiant. You know, again, we talked about it last year. I don't think was quite what everyone had hoped for from the Defiant. But this year, you got great names. I love the confidence and just like there's this like level of like zen about the coaching staff and the players that you have this year, of just like the pieces are just working. You know, it's one thing to be like, I can justify them because they're amazing on this hero, or they, do this. It's another thing to just be like, we start on time, we end on time. The players want to be here. The players are committed to the system. The staff is committed to the system. There's a level, I think, of calmness there. And so, with that, to those Toronto Defiant fans out there, I know Féfé stopped into the chat. I don't think he's still there, but stopped by to say hello during the show. Messages to those Defiant fans out there who are looking at those sweet new staple kits and definitely wanted to rep that team this year.
So there's definitely a lot to see. I think they'll have a lot to look forward to in terms of the matches. First of all, I'm fairly certain that our homestands will be with some of the greatest, because from what I saw, I think the Toronto viewing parties were like the second biggest after Guangzhou or something last season. There's been a lot of commitment from the community in Toronto, and I think our homestands will be amazing. I think there's a lot of viewing parties going on that will be amazing. They won't be disappointed, I think, by what we show in the game. And there's a lot of players on our team that want to prove themselves. As I said before, as you said, they are all committed to the system. And the thing that is closest coming up is we did like a huge photo shoot for like a few days ago, or last week or something. I think our Twitter teased it a little bit, the Toronto Defiant Twitter, but we were like going through all those photo shoots. I think it will be hype as fuck. Like I remember I had to climb up like ladders with like 1 foot active, and I had to climb them down as well, which was a little bit scary. But yeah, you do what you do. I'm good at climbing. That's how I broke my foot in the first place. So
wouldn't that mean you're not good at climbing?
Maybe not. Maybe not. We went to a couple of cool locations to make like hype photo shoots and hype video shoots that people will probably look forward to. It's going to be looking really cool, and I think something that I can say right now is that our matches will definitely be exciting, and having players there that people can recognize, having Canadian players there that people can identify with this time around is something that fans can look forward to. And we will make sure that the hype that will be delivered in the videos and in the photos will be as great as in the matches. It's part of the team. We know that social media is a big thing. We know that the fans are the biggest thing. So a commitment to that is definitely being made, not just in terms of photo shoot, but also how we play our games.
Awesome.
Well said. Well said.
I love it. Well, Barroi, best of luck to you in 2020. Hope you get to see a lot of pandas, travel a ton, read a lot of good books.
I hope so too.
Learn some new languages, whatever type of just crazy stuff that you're so good at. So kudos to you. Joe, Yiska, my boys. I'll see you on Tuesday.
Yes.
Yep.
Before we get out of here,
thank you for having me, by the way. It was a nice intro again. so much effort put into this. You even wear a panda suit. Like, it's the greatest fucking gift I can ask for. I know you said you had a surprise at the start of the show, but I didn't quite know what it was. But this is actually better than I expected.
Panda suits and intros. Love it. Yeah. So thanks everybody in chat for hanging out too. I know NFL playoffs are today and stuff, and so kind of doing a show on a Sunday is kind of weird for us to begin with, and the fact that so many of you came, you guys are the best. If you like the show, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch or patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. You can support there. We're $11 short of our extra episode a month goal. So you can head over there. Also go to bit.ly/TCP shop, and you can get some sweet Tactical Crouch merch. Looks good. Get that Yiscat shirt. Do it. It's worth it.
I actually will.
I've just got to, for me, the hardest choice is what things do I want a Yiscat on? It's the hardest part. So,
the hardest part is what things do I not want to be a
It's true. It's true.
That's a better question.
It's more like, what parts can I look at Katie in the eye and say, yes, I spent $300 on Yiscat. Yiscat stuff. So that's over at bit.ly/TCP shop. And other than that, we're going to be back Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Pacific time for rank 10 to rank 6. Spoiler alert. Yiska has Chengdu at 16.
Great
Yeah.
spoiler.
So good luck with that one, bud. Other than
But
that,
Joe has them in top 10, so.
so do I.
I mean, technically.
And everybody else with a brain.
Yeah.
That's not many people, apparently.
I don't know. I think didn't Plat Chat have him top 10?
I'd have to look. Not sure.
Thought they did.
Maybe.
Either way, pretty close to there anyways. They're within 12.
Sure.
I would say for sure. They're definitely play-eds. That's not important. We're out of here, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. We'll see you next time for another episode 72. 2 days. Not going to be long. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Shoop-a-doo-doo, shoop-a-doo-doo, shoop.